It was uncomfortable to watch. And Anish Shroff and Tom Luganbill were the commentators. They were clearly doing it remotely. I believe both of them were in Charlotte. The game was played in Canton, Ohio. And it was uncomfortable. So uncomfortable that Anish actually acknowledged it on the air, how uncomfortable it was, and that ESPN had been scammed, essentially. And so what you and I set out to do with this story is just figure out, how did this appear on our televisions? How did this school appear on our televisions? And it starts with a coach named Roy Johnson, and this is not his first school that has appeared out of thin air. There actually was another school in 2018 called Christians of Faith Academy, which allegedly was tied to a church, the AME Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and it was disavowed by this church, and they were going to play a schedule very similar to the schedule they have this year, but it sort of fell apart. One of the games they had scheduled was IMG Academy, and now there's been a lot of turnover at IMG Academy since then, but I talked to somebody who knows exactly what happened, actually several somebodies who know exactly what happened, and basically what happened with that one is the same guy got in touch through another guy. By the way, this cast of characters just gets wild. So there's another guy who brokers these games, who he plays matchmaker and does it kind of as a labor of love. And his name is Joe Maimone, and his day job is the VP of sales at Billboard magazine. Like, the name, I was told the name, I Googled the name, and I'm like, well, there's the VP of sales at Billboard magazine. That's obviously not the guy you're talking about, to the person who told me the name. And they're like, no, that's the guy. And so you talk to him, and he matches these teams up?
Yeah, so basically he has the 9-to-5 job, but this is his labor of love, and he has created actually what sounds to be like a really great business, where he has certain clients and they has a database of schedules, and when programs have a hard time getting a game, they contact him, and he puts it into his database and cross-references it with other programs that need a game, and then brings them together. And I think he even referred to himself, when I was on the phone with him last night, as a matchmaker. So that is that. And then he puts them together, they sign their contracts or their deals or whatever, and then it goes on to the next thing. So like, his involvement in this was, I think, the initial contact between the two schools, but I don't really know that he went all that far into, I mean, at that point, his job was over.
It goes into another, there's another set of middlemen here. But in 2018, what happened was, initially the game was supposed to be played in Columbus, where Christians of Faith or Bishop Sycamore, or whatever they were calling themselves, was at. And then after a little while, they get a call at IMG saying, hey, we can't get a stadium, so we're going to need to play down in Bradenton where you are. And IMG's like, okay, sure, sounds great. A few months after that, they get another call. Hey, we're going to need you to front our travel costs down to Florida. At that point, the IMG people go, something's up here. There's something fishy about this. And so they cancel the game. And that whole season essentially winds up getting canceled because the Ohio State Athletic Association just, basically says this is not a real school. This is not a real team. And so that schedule falls apart. But undeterred, Roy Johnson comes back as Bishop Sycamore. And in 2020, Bishop Sycamore played 6 games. They played 5 games against really good Ohio teams. They lost all those. And 1 game against IMG Academy, which needed games because its 2020 schedule fell apart because of COVID-19.
Yeah, and then here we are, right? I mean, and we're in a situation where, if this game wasn't on television, and that's something that both Roy Johnson, the coach, and Andre...
I'm talking about last year's IMG game. So IMG knows all of this. IMG knows what this thing is, and yet when the idea of playing them this year is proposed, they're like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're IMG, if you can even tell the difference by how many, teams you're demolishing, because, every week probably looks very similar to that. But, that's the thing that makes this year's version of it scary, because if it wasn't on TV, we wouldn't have seen it. It would have just been another blowout, and it might have gone under the radar a little bit. But the fact that this was on TV brought more attention to it.
And the biggest problem is that this school, Bishop Sycamore School, I'm using air quotes here, played a high school in Pittsburgh on Friday night and then turned around and played IMG on Sunday. And you talked to Roy Johnson, and he said, "Oh no, there was a little overlap. We were just trying to get a little work in, but there wasn't, wasn't guys playing in both games." Yeah, there were. The videos pretty clearly show that it was both were the same team essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, he was trying to explain it to me as like, well, if you don't practice during the week and you play a few in the other game and a few in the other, is kind of like a scrimmage. And it's like no reasonable coach at any level of football would schedule 2 games in a 3-day period, and the second of which against the Little Giants, Dallas Cowboys opponent. It's like,
right.
IMG was waiting for them on the other end, and their quarterback, bless his heart, was, he was hammered that entire game. And it was just so like at a certain point, I was like, are they going to shut this game down?
And their offensive line? Yeah, I mean, I'm watching their offensive linemen just get destroyed on every play, and then whoever had the ball was basically getting his head torn off. And
I mean, because you're talking about guys on the other team. It's like you're not even just playing another team. You're talking about guys who are going to Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, or have offers from those programs. And those are the types of program offers that Roy Johnson and the rest of his crew want to make you believe that his pro players have, and anybody can see that they don't.
You and I both talked to a parent who had what was supposed to be the quarterback of that team. His son was supposed to be the quarterback of that team. It was a guy named Ray Holtzclaw. His son Judah played in Ohio, had his senior season kind of wiped out by COVID, didn't really get a chance to perform for scouts, and so he's a class of 2022 guy who, or was he class of 21 or 22?
21.
Class of 21.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was going to do a post-grad year, and that's the other thing. They have presented this as a high school when it's actually more of a prep school with a bunch of post-grad guys who we don't know how old they are.
Yeah, and when you look at what they're selling, they're selling another chance to play football at an organized level without using your eligibility, because I think that the NCAA rule is that if you take a gap year, which is a year from the day that you graduate, you can get things in order without impeding on your eligibility.
Yeah, you can do a post-grad year, and you've seen guys do that at like Fork Union Military Academy. There've been plenty of stories of guys doing that.
Yeah. So what the Holtzclaws were trying to do were to put their son in a position to play quarterback and to put himself in a position where he's playing against IMG on TV, under the understanding or the thought that they were going to have a very good football team around them that could compete. And as things were going on, and they were trying to get through the summer and go on camps, and nothing was adding up. Hotel room bills weren't being paid, equipment wasn't showing up, organized practices were impossible to find. They couldn't meet most of the team. The offensive coordinator and defensive coordinators were nowhere to be found. And at a certain point, they were just like, we can't do this. You're only able to get dragged along so far before you kind of come to your senses. And now he's at Youngstown State, and he was a very good athlete, somebody who had a recruiting profile and actually was legitimately a player that could have really done something. So I'm very curious to see how his career pans out. But
he's going to play tight end at Youngstown State now.
Right. So I want to say that I feel really bad about the kids who are on the team.
I do too.
There's I
think they've been duped.
Yeah. So, and they're going out and they're playing hard, and it's just like, I kind of understand, in theory, that if this were to exist, how this could be a benefit, but it's just clearly not done the right way. And no matter how you couch this, it's just not the right deal.
Yeah, and it was so uncomfortable to watch. And that's the thing that just kept going through my, how does this get on ESPN? This wasn't on some local station. It wasn't a streaming thing. This was on ESPN, Used to be in 100 million homes, ESPN. It's still in like 80 million homes. ESPN. How does that happen?
I mean, aren't you kind of almost thankful that it did?
I guess so. Well, as of right now, we're recording this Monday night. The other games that are on their schedule are still scheduled. These are teams that are going to smash this team. And so hopefully some people are paying attention. My guess is after all of this attention, that's going to change.
Yeah. It's also like the question of how are they getting down there is still going to be a thing, and actually
paying for it. Yeah.
Ray Holtzclaw, the father of the Westerville prospect who's going to Youngstown State, grew up in Dallas and apparently has gotten in contact with the Duncanville coaching staff to tell them what was going on. So it'll be very interesting to track and see if they continue to play games. But, it is kind of an interesting thing because when you are watching games on TV, I mean, especially high school games, you give absolutely zero thought into how it's brokered, who created the matchup, who signed up the ability for this to be televised, and how much vetting goes into the schedule from ESPN. And when you come in to find a story like this, it's basically like you've got 4 different people trying to make this work, and ESPN doesn't really seem all that involved in it at all.